evening. I know you could be anywhere right now. It's Sunday. I mean, with daylight savings time, it definitely feels a lot later than it is. I don't know about y'all. Right now it's 6 p.m. in California and it feels like 14 p.m., right? They call it daylight savings time, but my question is how much light are they trying to save? It's so dark outside. But again, thank you so much for joining us. This is week 2 of our 8-week team leader development call. And I know it's called a team leader development call. It's not necessarily for team leaders to get developed, although team leaders are going to definitely get a lot of valuable information from this, as well as directors and above. We call it team leader development call. Try to say that 10 times fast, right? To develop the next wave of planners, managers, and senior managers to create the mindset of what it takes to be a team leader, director, senior director, national director, so you can embody those ways of being now, right? You can take action as if as you are that person now, and by default naturally get those results, right? And we also call it the 2025 director search, because as you know, we have a huge convention coming up March 14th, 15th, and 16th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, here's what I want to share with you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care if you just got started yesterday or you got started an hour ago. You have more than enough time, right? With strategic planning, focus, energy, and consistency, that anybody on this call can become a director by the next convention. I promise you that, right? I've never, life is extremely fair in my opinion. I've never ever seen anybody show up the way they're supposed to show up, give it their absolute best, try their hardest, constantly grow, learning from their mistakes, and not be able to succeed in this type of business, right? So anybody right now can make it happen and become a director by that time. And also, this call is set up just for us leaders to be able to identify the next layer of leadership, right? So I want to talk to all the brand new people for a second, because as your team starts to grow, you're going to have teams all over the world. I know we have Anita on this call. I can see her beautiful face, right? Anita has a team everywhere. And as you grow through these ranks, right, your team's going to expand. And what ends up happening is that your time is so limited, you can't work with everybody all the time, right? At the same time, I honestly believe you can have it all in life, but you can also not, but you can't do it all. And so what these calls are set up is to allow the people that have that drive, the vision, to identify themselves, right? So that way us as leaders know who to work with. Because as you grow this business and become a leader, you can't work with everybody, like I said. You learn that you got to work with people that deserve your time, not necessarily need your time. There's a huge difference, right? One of the best things about Remon is we attract so many kind, good-hearted people that genuinely care about people. But the challenge becomes this: when you care more about their success than they do about themselves, it's very easy to get pulled in different directions, right? So people like that, where I want it more for them than they want it for themselves, I work with them on a group setting, right? Like these Zoom calls, training calls. That's why they're so good. Because the more you study the information, the more you learn it, eventually something clicks, a light bulb goes off, a switch gets flipped inside of you, and all of a sudden your business changes, right? But the people that are serious, that have that desire, that have that work ethic, that are coachable, what ends up happening is they identify themselves, and we work with those people because they deserve it. Why? Because they're showing up, they're putting in the effort, they're putting in the work. And so that's the whole point of these calls. Last week we talked about how to build your business by design. It's already available on my Facebook. If you haven't seen it, it's also available on YouTube. And the whole purpose of that training is, in Team 1%, our slogan is change your face, change your finances. And that's such a huge part about our business because it's two-part. One, it highlights the value of our products, right? Creating your before and after pictures, your testimonials, being able to go out there and share the products with confidence by being a consumer of the product. But also changing your finances, creating your first promotion story, right? Creating your first exposure story, your success story, so that way you can go out there and inspire so many people. And so today we're going to take it another step forward, right? Every week builds up on the last. So you definitely want to make sure you watch the videos, although they're standalone videos as well. And today we're going to talk about passion and how that's the defining difference, right? Passion is the defining difference in this business. And I'm also going to break down passion as an acronym. For whatever reason, marketers love acronyms, right? We can't get enough of them. So we're going to break down passion, each letter of passion, what it stands for, just to illustrate that picture, why it's so important. And I also added a second part to this training that originally I wasn't going to include, but I was inspired by some of the conversations I had with some of the other leaders within this organization, right? And again, always reach out to your upline support, because we're not mind readers, right? We don't know what kind of challenges that you're going through in the business. And just as a rule of thumb as well, there's a big saying, right? When good things happen, good news goes everywhere, bad news goes up. So what does that mean? When you have challenges, when you have obstacles in the business, right? When you're feeling a little bit low, so important to reach out to your upline support, the people that you're working with, because chances are, if you've never been building a business like this before, everything can kind of seem like the end of the world, right? It's like a brand new child into the world. Everything's like the end of the world because there's no point of reference. But what is the value of having great parents, right? What is the value of having great mentors and leaders to follow? Is that because they've already been through it and they already have a point of reference, the thing that might seem like, excuse me, the end of the world for you is a no problem for them. And they can give you quick, solutions and insights to be able to save yourself time to be able to have those results. Okay. So again, anytime you face with challenges, bad news goes up to your uplines, good news goes everywhere. Okay. But again, let's talk about it. So passion, the defining difference, right? The stronghold to everything we do in this business is doing and living this business with passion. And the reason why that's so powerful is if you notice, when a leader reaches out with passion, what are they usually met back with? With passion. And we see this all the time, right? For all the team leaders and directors on this call, you probably already have this experience. You have somebody that has been in the business for quite some while. They know how to do a K-pop up like the back of their hand. They know every product, every ingredient. They know every single step. They could do the presentation. They can do everything. And yet they're at a certain level in their business. But then you see somebody else get started, right? Who's brand new, never done this business before. All they know how to do is demo the products. They don't even know it, they call it Juju Island instead of Jeju Island, right? They call it lion grass instead of tiger grass. They say all the wrong things, but yet they're able to sign up so many customers and sign up so many planners with no experience. So then what does it come down to? If you have two people in the same scenario, one has more skill and talent while the other person's brand new, why was it that one person had more success than the other? If you look at it very closely, it all comes down to the passion, the attitude, the excitement of the brand new person. For your notes, right? Ignorance on fire is infinitely more powerful than knowledge on ice. Okay, ignorance on fire is more powerful than knowledge on ice because it's not what you know. It's how you feel about what you know. It's how excited you get about what you know that determines how far you go, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a couple things that need to happen for someone to sign up. They have to love the product, right? They have to love the company. They have to love the rewards program, right? But the fourth thing is the most important part. In fact, it's so important that even if they're not in love with the first three, if the fourth one is in place, they'll get started. And that fourth thing is they're bought into you. Because I've seen people who love the company. They see it. The numbers make sense. I've seen people who use the products, love the products. The rewards program makes sense. But they don't get started because it's the person that invited them, the person that introduced it to them, right? And again, this is a leadership conversation. And I share this with you because at the end of the day, when you know where you're going, people will be scared not to follow you. But when you don't know where you're going, people will be scared to follow you. Does that make sense? So it starts with passion, it starts with excitement, right? Because like I said, when a leader reaches out with passion, they're usually met back with passion. And today, originally I had slides. But through technical difficulties, there will be no slides. So I'm going to do my best to go over it, with the notes that I remember. So I highly encourage you to take notes with a notepad and pen. Because again, I say this every single time, a short pencil is way better than a long memory. You know what I mean? So, the biggest lie we've ever told ourselves is, hey, I don't need to write it down. I'm going to remember it later. We've all had that experience, right? Where we said we're going to remember, and guess what? We forget, okay? At least I do, right? I know some people have really great memory. Okay, so let's talk about it. We need to learn what it means to have passion. So again, I broke it down, okay? So you take a look at the word passion. What does the P stand for? The P stands for profound significance. Okay? Now, in order to be significant in the lives of other people, guess what? We have to believe in our own significance. We have to really believe that we're created to do something great with our lives. Now, again, there's no scientific fact that proves that's true, but here's what I've learned. I've learned that we don't always see our beliefs, but our beliefs always determine what we see. So if we believe, right, that we were created to do something great with our lives, guess what life's going to show us? Opportunities for us to create something great with our lives. But if we believe that we're just, we're just average, mediocre, that, we're here by chance, then guess what? We have no idea what we're going to create with our lives. So you have to understand your profound significance. Now, for the chat box, I want to ask you guys a question, right? Let's make this a little bit interactive. So let me ask you a question. Do you think leaders are born, or do you think leaders are created? In the chat box. Okay. Are leaders born or are they created? Okay. Someone said both, right? So created, both created, right? And so for those of you who said created, I guess that's somewhat true, right? For some of you who said born, that's more so in line what I was looking for. And what I mean by this, right? Have you ever met an unborn leader? No, right? All leaders are born, right? But here's what I want to take a step further, right? In that conversation, are leaders born or leaders created? I honestly believe that leaders are found, right? A long time ago, right? There was this research behavioral scientist. He went into this village and he talked to the chieftain. He says, "Has any great men been born in this tribe?" And the elder chieftain says, "No, no great men, just babies," right? But leaders are found in how they show up. Okay, leaders are found. That's the whole point of this training, to find who the next layers of leaders are. I believe that leadership is in your DNA, right? DNA, your determined natural ambition. I think, leaders, right? Not everybody's meant to be a leader, but if you have that determined natural ambition inside of you in that DNA, then I believe that you're meant to be a leader. If you're the type of person that's always asking, how can I get better? I want more out of life. You are a leader. It's inside of you. Not everybody thinks that way. That's what's crazy. Not everybody believes that way. But chances are, if you're entering the realm of entrepreneurship, right? Team leadership, team development, leadership development, that it's inside of you. You might not have made sense to you up until now. You might not have noticed it. But if you look back into your lives, there's always been little examples of you being called to lead, right? You being pushed to get outside of your comfort zone, right? To challenge, beliefs, thoughts, desires. And so I believe that if you're on this call, that you're here for a reason, right? You have that DNA, that determined natural ambition. And guess what? We are significant, and you have to understand that we can make a difference, right? There's purpose in everything. Okay. We are here on purpose, with purpose, for purpose. And, for me, my purpose is simple, right? There's a lot of different ways of making money. But for me, I want to make money benefiting people. What better way to make money than money benefiting people? That's how I shifted my mindset. Why? Because when I share people the products, I'm not scared to sell the product. I'm not scared to share Remon. Why? Because I know that if they become my customer, right? Yes, I get paid, because some people feel weird about getting paid, off their friends and family. But guess what? Do they benefit from the product? Yes. And if someone signs up into the business, right? Sometimes we're scared to sign people up in the business, right? And, chances are, if you're scared of signing people up in the business, it's because you have a certain way that you view yourself in leading people, right? And that in itself says a lot of great things about you. Outside of, Remon, outside of fitness, before I got into the fitness industry, last couple of years, I spent a good chunk of my life doing consulting work for Inc. 500 companies, right? And, doing a lot of coaching and mentorship for them, not really teaching them how to do sales, but the other things that affect their sales, right? Because if you bleed in one area, you bleed in the other. And, one of the biggest things that I've noticed in people, that if you're the type of person that genuinely cares about people, you're going to go far. Now, you might not go fast, but you will go far. And I say that because sometimes people, like, I don't know if you ever had this experience, but you see people that are not so great. They don't have the right morals or ethics, and you kind of see it, but they tend to go farther than you, or they make more money, or they have more success a lot faster. And sometimes you question, ask yourself, like, am I doing something wrong, right? What's the difference here? And I want to share with you, right, that being a good person, good people win in the end. And that's something that I told Susan Manuela when she first got started. I just constantly reminding her that, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about who gets there first, it was who stays there. Right. And guess what? It's only lonely at the top if you step on people to get there. But if you generally build this business because you want to benefit people through the products, through the business plan, right? You're going to go far. You're going to go far. Right. So again, how do we differentiate that? Right. Understand, for your notes, that you are the constant example of what it takes to succeed. And people are always watching what you do. And what do I mean by that? Right. For those of you that have kids, how exciting and interesting was it when you first started raising your kids, first several years, that they imitated and copied everything that you do? This business is the same way. When you get someone started, how you bring someone in is how you bring them up, right? We hear that all the time on the wealth building call with Larry and Taylor Thompson, right? So understand that this is, when you're in this business, you're in a fishbowl. People are always watching you, right? Because you are the example of what it takes to succeed. And they're watching what you do. They're watching your posture. They're watching how you carry yourself, right? They look at how you act and the way you are. And that's why personal development is so important. That was one of the things that I fell in love with this industry the most. And I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing. Read the books, listen to the tapes, get on get on the calls, soak yourself with the information, because the better you become, the more you attract, right? Success is not something you pursue, it's something you attract by the person that you become. So if you want more, guess what? You got to become more. And how do you become more, right? By putting yourself out there, by studying, by learning, by mastering the craft, right? By becoming as independent as fast as possible. Now, you have great team leaders, directors, senior directors and national directors above you, but until you master this business on your own, where you no longer need them, they're a bonus, right? You're not a full-fledged leader yet. And there's no better place to be in than when you know your business is 100% in your control, because you know how to do it, you know how to do it correctly. Okay. And that's why it's so important. Like I said, personal development, right? Learning the skill sets, because people are watching your example. They're not watching your opinion, they're watching your example. People are always looking for success stories, just like you are looking for success stories. And let me share with you something. Every single one of you on this call has listened to enough success stories where it's time for you to decide to become the next success story. Okay. And if you want to know really what the secret to this business is, I'm going to share with you, okay, for your notes. The number one skill to learn. Tim Herr has mastered this. Excuse me. And here's the skill. It's to help other people feel, believe, and see that they are significant. That's really the secret. It's to help other people feel, believe, and see that they are significant. The way I look at it is, many of us have dimmed our light for the longest time because maybe life, society, hasn't always been the most encouraging of that, right? We all understand that most people are okay with seeing us get by. They're just not okay with seeing us get by them, right? They want to keep us into a box. The moment, we do something different, we put ourselves out there, it might seem a little bit different. We might get discouraged, right? Or people that don't understand our hustle, our grind, because, God didn't give them, your vision. Okay. And it's easy to get beat up. And that's why it's important to be reminded. Because, I was talking to Anita about this, I believe it was yesterday, right? The four most powerful words you can ever say to somebody is, I believe in you. If you could say those four things with authenticity and you genuinely mean it, it'll make the biggest difference in the lives of people. And think about it, besides, if you're a child, right? Some of us didn't even hear that as a child, right? But when was the last time we personally ever had someone genuinely tell us that they believed in us? And if you had that experience, like, how did that make you feel? Because at the end of the day, here's what I learned, and what stops me from being upset at people is I look at everybody like kids, right? Because we're all like kids. Guess what? We grew up, but our egos didn't, right? We have the same ego and temperament oftentimes as when we were as a kid, right? That's why, when we get triggered, right? They say if it's hysterical, it's historical, right? That's what trauma is. And that just brings us back to when we were a kid. And really, all it is people want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. They want to feel valued. They don't want to feel like just another number. And so as you go out there and build this business, it's so important that every single person you sign up, you have them feel, believe, and see that they are significant, right? And you do that through your actions. You do that by keeping your word. You do that by showing up for them, right? We're going to talk about that in the later weeks when we talk about relationships, how that's the glue. And we're also going to talk about it more later on in the weeks that we talk about how to start people up versus signing people up, okay? So understand that, it's all about understanding your profound significance, that you're not here by accident, that you're here for a reason. We hear so many stories, but it's absolutely true, for the chat box, let me ask you a question, okay? Um, when you get started in Remon, you enter your credit card. On the bank statement, it says Remon, but who do you think you really made that investment to? Right? In the chat box, right? When you get started, right? You make that payment, you buy that starter kit. Okay, I see a lot. Me, myself, right? Yourself. All great answers. But can I offer you a slight different perspective? It's an investment, not just in you, but it's an investment in who you get to be for other people. That's really what you're making an investment into. It's an investment in who you get to be for other people. Because think about it, most people are living this timeline. Like for me, I'll use myself as an example, right? When I saw Remon, I was very comfortable in my life in the fitness industry, doing very, very well, right? I was living what I call the predictable future. I know what the next, several months, several years are going to look like because if I don't do anything different, it's going to stay the same, right? And I'm okay. I was okay with that. But then when I saw Remont, I saw the ingredients, right? The instant efficacy, the affordable luxury, the convenience of the multi-step program, right? The packaging, the design, the rewards program. I got excited. And here's what ended up happening. It's almost like a sci-fi movie. It created alternate timeline where now, because of the possibilities of Remont, right? I'm now able to create what I call the impossible future. What's the impossible future? It was the future that wasn't going to happen up until now. And I say that because how many people, and it's the most rewarding thing is that as you really get to know your team and as you get people started and you talk to them about their why, you're gonna have experiences where people are gonna get emotional. You're gonna have experiences where people are really gonna say like, "How man, I was praying for something like this. I was looking for something like this," and then it starts to click that man, like because you stepped into their life, you're now offering them an opportunity where they can heal themselves, right? Get themselves out of situations, right? Improve their life to be, do, and have more. Like that's the gift that you are. And that's the gift that you're providing for other people. So I share that because let's not take signing people up lightly. Let's not take bringing people into this business lightly. The way I look at it, it's like, giving birth to a child, right? You're bringing somebody into this world. In the very beginning, they don't know how to do everything, right? It's your job to guide them through the early stages of their life to learn how to do this business, but more importantly, not just learn how to do this business, but to believe in themselves that they can do this business. Okay. And if you can do that, it'll duplicate. Okay. Now, the next part of passion, right, is A. And what does A stand for? A stands for action, not apathy. Okay. So there's times in these conversations I have with you, right? It might be very romantic, might be very charismatic, and sometimes it might be very, very aggressive, right? And I think, when it comes to action, not apathy, I think it's definitely something more aggressive because, it's time for action, right? For lack of better words, talk is cheap. What you say has very little meaning compared to what you do, right? So it's time to build with passion and urgency and consistency. A lot of people think that, they ask me, what's the worst place to be at in the world? And I say it's apathy. Apathy in life is the worst place to be because apathy is like giving up. At least if you're depressed, you're anxious, you're feeling something, right? It's like the little warning signs that's telling you, hey, something's off, shift and change needs to happen. Because guess what? Depression and anxiety is on the same level as excitement and happiness. Why? They're both indications of emotions, extremes that let you know where your life is going. But apathy is dangerous because apathy, there's no range. Apathy means you've given up, you resigned, and we met people like that. In this business, you can't go through life like that. You can't go through this business like that, right? So passion is action. It's waking up, taking life head on. It's doing what you said you were going to do, right? And that's what building confidence is. People go, Julian, like, how do you build confidence? It's all about building trust in yourself, keeping your word to yourself, right? It's doing what you said you were going to do, right? You want to get to the place where your word is good. You have character and integrity, right? It's not just about watch what listen to what I say carefully, but don't watch what I'm doing too closely. You want your actions to speak louder than your words, right? Living life with passion is about having high standards for yourself and not accepting mediocrity, right? Right? Because again, at the end of the day, talk is cheap. And we say it, what you say has very little meaning to what you do. You want to be the leader that doesn't just talk well, that shows up, takes action. James Coe, one of the top directors, he said that something that was so good. I can't really share with you the backstory behind it because it's a leader. It's a little bit in-depth leadership conversation. But when you hit director and you remember it, just come talk to me. I'll share this story. But I'll give you the short version. He just said simply, and I love this quote. He says, "I'd rather be a workhorse than a show pony." He says, "I'd rather be a workhorse than a show pony." Think about that for a second. What's a show pony? A show pony looks good, looks the part, prances around, right? It's all show, but a workhorse gets things done, shows up, makes things happen. And let me tell you something, at the end of the day, you want to be a workhorse, not a show pony. And how do you know that? It's based on the actions that you take, right? And again, this is where personal development is so important. Motivation, inspiration is so important, right? You want to develop your professional skill in this business. And I promise you, everything you need. And I heard Mr. Danny Bay said this. I was 18 years old. Mr. Danny Bay was 24. And he said that was this to me, and it stuck with me forever. He says, Julian, everything you need to say or do to become successful, someone's already said it, someone's already done it. All you have to do is find those people, do what they do, say what they say, and you'll have what they have. And so again, how did I get good at presenting this business? I looked at the people that we have so many overview calls with so many great leaders, so many different styles, right? How I got good at it is when I first got started, I had to learn how to present fast. Why? Because, it was just the company, and then Tim Herr, Chris Kim, and then me. And so we didn't have a lot of upline support. We were all brand new at the exact same time. We didn't know how to explain everything. So what did I do, right? I knew that we're all going to be super busy. So what I do, I downloaded Mr. Steve Nguyen because he was the director at the time, right? Number one money earner. And I downloaded his presentation and I watched it. And not only did I watch it, but I took notes. And then after I took notes, I went back and rewrote it in my own words. And so that way I could fully understand it and own the words. And then guess what I did? When I would drive, long drives, I would practice that presentation over and over again in my head. And that's how I got good at it. I practiced it, right? But some people, right? And again, if this is what you've been doing, it's okay, right? But now that you know better, it's important to do better, right? Most people do not study the presentation unless they have a guest and they go to the presentation. It's better to be prepared with no opportunity than have an opportunity not be prepared. So that's the type of action you got to take, right? Learning how to do the orientations. Don't wait until you become a team leader to be able to do an orientation or overview, because guess what's going to happen? Once you hit those ranks, the company asks you to speak on it. You don't want that to be your practice time, right? And again, the more, and I know this is a little bit of a maybe toxic masculine example, right? I come from a background of martial arts and fighting. I was an amateur kickboxer, and you guys already know my boxing story, right? I come from a background of changing people's faces, but not necessarily making them look better, right? As a fighter, but I share that, but I studied, I practiced, and you want to study and practice, right? There's a saying: the more you sweat and practice, the less you bleed in battle. So you want to get prepared, you want to practice, right? I look at it like sparring. How often do you practice the products, right? Doing your K pop-ups. And all nervous is whenever you feel nervous, here's what it means. It just means you're not prepared enough. That's all it means. It just means you weren't prepared enough. So if I have a talk, I have a training, I take the kind of action I take is I practice it until I get bored of it. You want to practice things to the point where you're bored of it. What does that mean? You no longer feel high highs, low lows, right? You've practiced it so many times, whereas like it's already second nature and you feel no emotion, right? And that's the best place to be at, because it means that you've mastered it. And now when you deliver the information, you deliver with passion, it goes a lot further, right? So again, at the end of the day, you cannot decide what's going to happen in your life and in your business, but you get to decide how you respond and what you're going to do with it. And let me share with you something. Always take action. Why? Because it either works out or you're going to have a great story. That's my mindset. When I go out there and I take action, if it ends up working out, I got the result I wanted. If it doesn't, it becomes a great story that I get to tell later. It becomes a learning lesson, a parable that I get to share. So understand that every experience is valuable. So take action. Because the ironic part is what stops us from taking action is we have doubt. But how to remove doubt? By taking action. It's like the weirdest thing, right? That sounds like a pyramid scheme, right? You gotta take action, remove doubt, right? And then you don't take action because you have doubt. It's like the funniest thing. All right, so right? So go out there, study it, take action. Again, when I say take action, right, it doesn't necessarily mean prospecting. Yes, that's a part of the business, right? Ask yourself, what activities could I be going out there doing that's going to move the business forward, and take action based on that, okay? Now, the first S in passion stands for service to others. And, I cannot stress that enough, right? Our lives were created to serve others. I firmly believe that. Jim Rohn had such a great quote that he took from the Bible. He says, service to many leads to greatness. If you want to be great, you have to find a way to serve the many, right? And, and somebody goes, but what if I don't want to serve the many? That's fine, but you're not going to be great. Because think about it, right? We get paid proportionate to the amount of problems we can solve, the challenges that we overcome. Right. So that's why serving others is so important. And again, there's a lot to this, right? We talked a lot about that on the last call, right? How the secret to this business, as far as building, is focusing on getting all your new people to manager. Why is that? Because people care more about their success than your own. And it's okay, right? You know what everybody's favorite radio station is WIIFM. That stands for What's in It for Me. And the best way to motivate people, right, is to focus on what's in it for them. You might be running for senior manager, right? And you need the volume. You can push for it yourself and you might get the job done. But if you go to your team, your customers, and you share with them what's in it for them to get started, what's in it for them in the business, what's in it for them being a product of the product, they're going to get started. By default, guess what? You're going to hit that rank. Same thing to hit team leader, right? You want to hit team leader, the slowest way to do that is to focus on the 50,000 points. The fastest way to get there is focusing on your new people going manager. Why is that? Because new people are the most excited. New people have the biggest list, right? And new people tend to be the most coachable. And when you work with the new people, here's what happens. You get them results. Every single person above them that's been around for a little bit, guess what's going to happen? They realize there's money on the table. They're going to push harder. I'll give you an example. If I get someone started, let's say that person doesn't do too much, but then they get someone started, right? That person's coachable. That person has the work ethic. That person has a desire. And I get that person to manager. You know what's going to happen? The person that was above them that didn't too much, they go, man, that person I brought in just hit manager. I'm more than halfway to senior manager. There's money on the table. What if I just introduce more people to the business and got some more customers? I can hit senior manager and lock higher commissions. Do you see how that works out, right? Because you could go to that person and say, hey, we got to get you to senior manager, this and that. But if you go to the new person, the person above them is going to get excited automatically. And that's what we call tap rooting. And we're going to share more about that in terms of building strategy a little bit later on. But always find ways to serve others. You know who's really great at this? Mr. Tim Her. And I love the first convention that we went to, because the first convention we went to, our group was still relatively new. The only people that really knew us were people in our organization. And, one thing that I learned from Tim, Tim takes it to the next level. Like for me, when I go around convention, if I see people trying to take photos and stuff like that, I go, hey, do you guys want a picture? Let me take a picture with you guys, right? And I take pictures with their group so they can be together. Tim Her actually brings his own camera and takes pictures of everybody. And I remember the first convention, people are like, oh, this guy's so cool, just taking pictures of everybody. Maybe he works for the company. And then later he goes up on stage as like the number one money earner for that quarter, right? Think about that lasting impact. People are like, here's a guy that was humble enough outside taking pictures, capturing people's experiences, supporting them. And he's also the number one money earner in the company. At the end of the day, people are going to forget what we have, but they're always going to remember you for what you give and how you showed up for them. So always find a way to serve others. That's the sweet spot in this business. Every sport has a sweet spot. Our sweet spot is servicing others, right? If you learn and master serving others, you're going to become wealthy, right? Because, life is all about duality. Or I'm a firm believer that if you give, guess what? You're going to receive. But I also believe that if you take, you're going to lose. So on the same end of it, right? Service to many leads to greatness. But I'm also a firm believer that if you do things only for yourself, that's who you're going to get left with. Okay? Guess what? You can never give too much. It'll always come back to you. It might not come back from the people that you give it to, but it'll come back another way, shape, or form. I had a lot of past relationships not work out. Thank God it didn't, right? Like romantic relationships. But I was always a great significant other. I always did my best to be a great significant other, even though it wasn't always reciprocated, right? And again, we can go into detail about trauma, parents, and all that, but that's a conversation for a different day. But guess what? What's great is my fiance, soon-to-be wife, Yvonne Chewy, we've known each other for 11 years, right? We've seen each other go through different relationships, right? We're never single at the same time. We saw each other go through different relationships. We saw how much the other person showed up for the other person, right? I saw Yvonne never being loved, the way she should have been loved. And in the same token, she saw me never being appreciated or respected in the way that I should have. But they saw how we each saw how selflessly we showed up for the other person. And so why do I share that with you? Because even though we gave to the wrong relations at that time, us getting together, after 11 years, right? Already being best friends, seeing how we showed up for each other. Guess what? It saved so much more time in our relationship because we already knew who the other person was, because we saw based on their example, we saw based on their action. So why do I share that with you? Because when you show up correctly for your people, whether they reciprocate it or not, what's going to happen is people are watching. And somebody else is going to get inspired by that. Someone else is going to be drawn to you from that. And it always comes back because every service that you give comes with it a seed that you can harvest. You just don't know when it's going to bloom, right? And what's amazing is that most people spend the first half of their life, if you notice, on their way to become wealthy, they chase success. But then what happens when they have it? What do they spend the rest of their life doing? They're chasing significance. Now, excuse me, the beauty of Riemann is we can have success and significance at the same time. And in fact, the more significant we become in the lives of others, the more successful we become, right? And how do we become significant? By how well we service others, by how well we show up for other people. And that's the beauty of it, right? John F. Kennedy, one of the greatest presidents of all time, what did he say? Don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. So don't ask what your team can do for you. Ask what can you do for your team. And, I think I shared this on the last call, right? It was kind of graphic, but they go, like, Julian, how do you build like a solid organization? How do you build a strong, loyal culture? And I go, well, you have to find people that would be willing to cut off their right arm for you. And then, I know people are like, what? That's so intense. Like, how do you find people that are willing to cut off their right arm for you? I go, by showing up in such a way that they know you're willing to cut off both arms for them. When your people know that you're willing to do more, to give more, and expect more than what you're asking of them, they will show up for you. That is the sweet spot. Okay. Now, the second S in passion stands for soul on fire, right? The most powerful weapon on earth is a human soul set on fire, right? And how do we do that? How do we light our soul on fire? How do we get excited? How do we flip that switch, right? That fire needs to be fed. And you know how we feed it? By surrounding ourselves with people who love us, by surrounding ourselves with people who challenge us, by surrounding ourselves with people that hold us higher, and more importantly, speak the truth into us and nurture our soul. And that's what feeds us, and that's what feeds others, right? So how do you do that, right? It's by, when you get someone started, we do the orientation, the short-term goals, long-term goals, the why. One thing my fiance does so well, and it's also one of the reasons why we have such a strong culture in our organization, is that even if they go on the orientation call, she spends so much time like afterwards really talking to them, figuring out what their short-term goals are, long-term goals are, and what their why is. She wants to know why they're doing this business so she can hold them accountable, right? So she can challenge them, right? When they're not showing up the way they need to be. So she can celebrate them when they're accomplishing those little milestones along the way, but also at the same time so she can coach them along the process so they can be the person that they need to be to do those things, to have those things, right? So very, very powerful, right? So again, talk to people about their dreams, talk about their potential, talk about their significance. That's how you light other people's soul on fire. And once your soul's on fire, guess what? Your business is going to change because you're not going to be able to speak about the business enough. It's naturally going to come across. You're naturally going to find authentic ways to talk about the products, to talk about the business. And guess what? When you set yourself on fire, what's going to happen? People are going to come all around the world to see you burn, right? There's people out there who's already given up and they're looking to get their soul lit. And that's up to you. There's a great quote by a great poem by Miriam Williamson, right? And, it was made famous by Coach Carter. She says, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is not the dark, but the light that frightens us, right? But when we let our light shine, guess what we do? We give other people permission to let their light shine. You have people in your life that are watching you and depending on you to become successful. They might not know it, but because when you let your light shine, when you make it happen in your life, you're giving people permission all around you of what's possible so they can go out there and they can step up and they can make it happen too. For your notes, right? This is a huge one, right? If it doesn't start with you, it will not start with others. It has to start from you. It has to start with you. If it doesn't start with you, it won't start with other people. And one of my I learned this from Tim Herr. You know what a leadership trick is? I'll give you a good leadership trick. Leadership trick. Okay. If you ever want to know what the organization needs or what they need support with, right? Or what a leader needs. So let's just say, for example, I'm just gonna throw a random name out there, like Alan, right? My one of my team leaders, Alan, right? If I need to know what he needs support with and how he can grow and learn, you know what I do? I don't ask him, hey, what do you need? Because sometimes ego is involved. Not Alan, but sometimes ego is involved. And I go, hey, Alan, what do you think your team needs? And guess what? Whatever he says his team needs, guess what? It really means that's what he needs. So if I go, hey, Alan, what do you feel like? What do you think your team needs to really crank up production and volume? And you know what he says? He goes, I think my team needs to be a little bit more motivated, a little bit more determined. Um, they definitely need to be more fired up, need to be committed, and they need to understand the process, whatever it is, right? So what does that mean? That means that's what he needs. So I focus on him developing that. Guess what? And how do I focus on him developing that? By me leading by example and doing that. And that's how it duplicates, right? So if you ever want to know what a leader needs, just ask them, what does their team need? And they'll tell you, right? Simple as that. So that's a little thing that will come in handy down the line, right? So again, I want to share with you, if it doesn't start with you, it doesn't start with other people, okay? And it's so important because the action we live every day either ignites our soul or it dims our soul. Does that make sense? Because this business, let me share with you, ladies and gentlemen, it's much more than just selling products. It's a lot more than making money. It's about stepping into the lives of other people and giving them hope. It's by inspiring them, right? What does the word inspire mean? It means to breathe life into somebody, right? So when you're inspiring somebody, you're literally breathing life into them. And that's what most people need today: hope, belief, desire. Someone to see them, to say, I see you. I believe in you. You have what it takes. I'm in it with you, right? To have people come into their lives and feel their dreams instead of their dramas, right? Because most of us, what happens? We're surrounded by people that feel our dramas, but they don't feel our dreams. And so that's the best way to do it, right? To be around people that love us, challenge us, and nurture us. And, the Remont community is so great. That's why when you get on these calls, you get on these training calls from the Friday leadership, the wealth focus group, you get inspired, you get recharged because you're reminded of the mission. Sometimes we get so caught up in the commission that we lose sight of the mission and the vision, right? Which is the most important. The commission takes care of itself. Okay. The I in passion stands for inward devotion to greatness. You have to have an inward devotion to greatness, and that's something we can't give you, right? You have to have the courage to fulfill your vision, and that courage comes from passion, right? Dreams come from being courageous. And guess what? You don't know how courageous someone is until they're in a situation that depends on it. And guess what? Some people are in situations that depend on it, and you get to be that beacon of hope. You get to be that possibility for them. Because in life, guess what? It's easier to not be courageous than be courageous. But we have to be devoted to greatness, right? The process and being courageous and devoted every day to live better and do better and keep our eyes on the prize, right? And knowing that everything you're doing is bringing you one step closer. Understand that every action that you take is bringing you one step closer to where you want to go, whether it's a victory or a learning lesson. Every single part of it's necessary, right? Imagine if you had a crystal ball and you saw into it and it told you the future 5 years from now. That through Remon, you became, one of the top positions in the company, right? Making multiple six figures a month. Your life has been forever changed, right? Your family has everything that they need, want, and it's just your dream come true. And you saw it and you knew it. But the challenge is that you saw the result 5 years later, but you know what's happening. How differently would you show up from now to the next 5 years? How differently would you handle rejection when someone says no to becoming a customer, or when they say no to becoming a planner? You wouldn't take it as personal. You're like, hey, it's just part of the process, right? If somebody who joins your business and quits, are you going to react the same way? Right? Probably not, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you're going to make it. That's the kind of mindset and that's the kind of courage you need to have and show up every day to make happen. That everything you're doing is bringing you one step closer, right? That, you overcoming and persevering, right, inspires that also in others, right? And here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen, the people that are most successful are the ones that struggle the most. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how successful do you want to be? If the answer is a 10, guess what? You're going to have to go to level 10 versions of challenges because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the goal, it's who you become in pursuit of the goal that matters, right? It's not the pursuit of happiness, it's actually the happiness in the pursuit. And when you learn to enjoy the journey, when you learn to focus on getting better at the game rather than focusing on the score on the scoreboard, you're naturally going to win the game automatically. Okay. And again, so understand that struggling is a part of the process. Challenges are part of the process. It tests you to see if you really want what you say you want, but also it's what's forging you to have the character, the drive, the ambition to be able to go out there and lead people. That when people go through what you go through, you can show them the blueprint because you've already gotten yourself out of that situation, right? And that's why, we go through what we go through, right? We go through it also to grow through it, but also so that way we can actually go out there and lead others. And I know that's not necessarily the most exciting conversation to have because you can take it in so many different ways, especially when I used to do like teach group therapy and do trauma work because people go like, well, why did this happen? Right? Well, one, you can either let it destroy you or you can let it define you, right? It's always your choice. Okay. And so I like to choose to have beliefs that push me forward, that empower me rather than not. Because everything's made up anyways. You guys don't know that, right? We make up everything, whether God's challenging us, loves us, is challenging us, or God hates us and he's punishing us, right? Who says which one is right? Well, whatever one you believe, that's the evidence that's going to show up in front of you, okay? So choose to believe in the stuff that's going to power you, okay? The O in passion, and this is my favorite one, and that O means one person with passion is better than 40 people who are merely interested. Okay, let me say that again. One person with passion is better than 40 people who are merely interested. Because one person with a dream can absolutely change the world. And you have to believe that you are the one that's going to make the difference. Stop looking for the one, right? We've all been guilty of it. If I could just find that one person that joins, boom, my business is going to change. If I could just that one customer, boom, you are that one. Stop searching for the one. Be the one, right? Because birds of a feather flock together. Because if you show up as that person, guess what? If you show up strong, you're gonna attract other strong people. And people that are not strong yet, that want to be strong, are gonna follow you. Does that make sense? It begins with you, that you are the lighthouse, right? And here's what I mean by lighthouse, okay? I like to use the term lighthouse specifically because in life, you can either be a lighthouse or a tugboat. And this is a leadership conversation, right? This is a difference. This is the difference we working with deserve, not need, right? And what's the difference, right? A lighthouse and a tugboat both save boats from crashing into, cliffs and to the shore or whatever it is, right? A tugboat, guess what? This sees a boat in trouble, goes out into the ocean, plugs itself in, right? And rags itself down, saving these boats going back and forth to such an extent that they damage themselves. But what does a lighthouse do? They save boats too. What do? They stand nice, tall, and strong. They stand firm and they shine their light and guide people where they want to go, saving people while at the same time, maintaining and taking care of themselves, right? That's what we mean by you're the lighthouse, to stand tall, to be that shining light, to guide people, and again, understanding your profound significance that you are that one. And, people go, well, man, how much of a difference can we really make? And it reminds me of the story of this old man walking down this beach, right? And he saw this little boy. This little boy's picking up the starfish, throwing it into the ocean. And the old man is like, "What are you doing?" The little boy's like, "I'm saving the starfish." And the old man goes, "You can't save all of them." And the little boy picks up one, throws it into the ocean, goes, "Save that one." Picks up another one, save that one, right? And again, it's not, to change the whole world, but impacting every life that we come across. Because guess what? That creates a ripple effect that's going to extend far beyond us. Does that make sense? Again, this is a lot bigger than skincare. This is a lot bigger than marketing. This is a lot bigger than making money, like truly making a difference. And I know it sounds like wild, right? All of a sudden, if you never made $10,000 a month before, these people tell you that it's possible. And sometimes we feel like it's too good to be true. And let me share with you something. If it feels or sounds too good to be true, then you just don't know how great life can be yet. So let us expand that vision for you, okay? So remember, you can make a difference, but not until you overcome and set yourself on fire, okay? And the end and passion says for never ever quit. That's super simple, right? Because guess what? Struggle in life is much less painful than regret. Struggle in life is less painful than regret. Because people, you can't quit. Because what are you going to quit to, right? Obviously, you join because there's goals and dreams that you want to accomplish that you see possible now that you didn't see possible before. So if you quit, what are you going to quit to? Going back to what it was before, where you had no chance, where here you do have a chance? Because if you join because there's a place that you want to get to. There's a destination in your mind that you want to arrive to. And if you quit, guess what? There's still a place you want to go to, so don't quit, right? This business is simple, but not easy. But I'm telling you, it's definitely worth it. So many times people go, Julian, is network marketing easy? And I'm like, man, there's times that it's easy. People go, Julian, is network marketing hard? I'm like, man, there's times it was the hardest thing in the world. But let me ask you, every time they ask me if it's worth it, I say every single time, every single time. Because at the end of the day, let me share with you something, ladies and gentlemen, right? We all have two start dates in this business. The day you get started and the day you get started. The day you get started is where you get your planner ID, you enter your information in, you get all that. But the day you get started, that's a little bit different. That's the day where you draw the line in the sand and it says that my life will never be the same. That this is it, over, under, or through. No matter what, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to make it happen. I'm good enough. I'm going to be a national director. I'm going to change my life. Right? Where you say, like, I'm going to take full control over my life. I'm going to make it happen because I deserve it, because I'm worth it. I matter. And that's the day that everything changes. The only difference between me and other people in this business is people quit and I didn't. I shared on the last call my first 5 years being in this industry. I've been in 19 years. Last five, I was out, but my first 5 years in the business, in the industry, I was making about 200 bucks a month. And in the company I was with, to earn commissions, you have to either sell or buy $180 worth of product. So you do the math. I was profiting 20 bucks a month, or I was not making any money. And let me tell you something, during that time, I saw a lot of people a lot sharper than me who got started and had fast success and hit some challenges and they quit. And, some of them I follow on Facebook and, they're working regular jobs, doing regular things. But I've also seen people who get started who are a lot sharper than me, who had the network, had the credibility, did not have autism like I did not have well, some of them had ADHD, right? But not make it in those 5 years. So in the last 5 years, in the first 5 years, I've seen people who are really good, make a lot of money, disappear. And I've seen people who are so talented who I thought for sure would make it, didn't. But let me share with you, my fifth year being in this business, I made my first $10,000 a month, right? 6 months after that, I made over $200,000 and I became the youngest and fastest diamond and six-figure earner in that company. The only difference between me and those people is they quit and I didn't. I'm telling you, your time's going to come. As long as you don't quit, you keep putting in the effort and you keep getting better. It's not about, hey, I keep showing up doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That is insanity. It's about, I keep showing up, doing the work while focusing on being better, on getting better at the business. That's the secret. Because so many people build the business, but they're not focusing on getting better at the business. And that's why they stay where they're at. The biggest lie that we've ever told is that if you just do your best, that's enough. Because that's not true. Your best will only get you as far as your best can get you. Right? My best in weightlifting is different than somebody else's best. The secret is this, is doing your best until you know better. And once you know better, then do your best. And then you do your best until you know better. It's a cycle. And if you do that, you're constantly reinventing, you're constantly growing, you're constantly developing yourself. And eventually you arrive into the belief and the mindset, the person you need to be to go out there and make it happen. So remember, struggle, right, is less painful than regret. Understand that some days today, so many times we put our future to someday. And let me tell you something. I looked at the calendar. I see a Monday, I see a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday, but I don't see a someday. So someday is today. Just make that decision. Let today be your start date. Because again, pain is temporary, but quitting is forever. Really get good. Once you get good at this business, everything will change. Everything will change. And remember, when a leader reaches out with passion, he's met with passion. Because at the end of your life, you're either going to have one of two things, either the results you wanted or the reasons why you did it. Okay? So ask yourself, what level of the game are you playing at? What level of the game are you playing at? Are you playing amateur? Right? High school, college, professional? Because each level of the game, there's more responsibilities, there's higher levels of intensity, but the rewards are so much greater. Okay? So here's my invitation to you, okay, as we wrap up this call, because I don't want to take up too much of your time and we're going to continue on the next one. Very, very important. What are the call to action? What are the next call? What steps? Okay. Right now, we're all working very, very. There's times that we invite to recruit people. There's times we recruit to invite people, and I'll share with you what that means. Okay. We have something coming up that's extremely important, right? We have a moment in time that's not going to happen for another 365 days. And this event, right, when positioned correctly, will double and triple the amount of production you've been doing the past several months and the amount of money that you've been making. And what that is Black Friday. Black Friday is coming up. Black Friday is very, very powerful. I cannot tell you what deals are coming out yet. I can't tell you what promotions are coming out yet, but it's gonna be wild. And here's one thing that we all can agree on. Remon products are great. Remon products work and they're beautiful and they actually make great gifts, right? Can you imagine being in a health and wellness company right now and Christmas happens, someone opens up and they get a bottle of vitamins or something, or, a weight loss shake? That probably be a little bit uncomfortable, right? But you take a look at our Rad 100 line, our expert line, like their product are so well designed and packaged. They work so well that they actually make great gifts. And, for your family members that maybe you haven't been able to fully experience the products yet to become a customer planner, a great way to get them involved is, guess what? Simply to give them the products as a gift, let them use it, and through that, let them come to you, okay? And as a side note, anytime you ever give people products, right, to demo, like you front them products to use to sample, rule of thumb, if they have not reached back to you in 48 hours, it means they have not used the product. So I'm going to give you one of my secrets that I use, okay? Anytime I sample the products, I give it to somebody. If they don't hit me up in 48 hours, like dating, right? If they don't hit me up in 48 hours, all I do is I text them and I say, hey, it's been 2 days and you have not texted me about Remon yet. That means you haven't used the products, because if you did, you would have messaged me first. And then what happens is they usually go, ha ha, yeah, I've been so busy, this and that. I go, it's okay, I totally understand. But that's also how I know the products are so good that if you used it, you would have contacted me right away. When can you use the products by? And something as a simple push like that, right? But again, Black Friday's coming up. There's going to be huge promotions, huge sales. Now, how do you position yourself? Okay. It's not just about you positioning yourself to get as much product as you can, at a huge discounted rate so you can give as gifts. Okay. That's not the purpose. The purpose, though, is to build such a big team from now to then, because the bigger your team is from now to Black Friday, that's how much production your team's going to go. That's how many more people are going to get promoted. Okay. So right now we got to sneak people in before Black Friday and get as many people as managers and senior managers as possible. Okay. I don't know where you are at in the business yet, but a planner, think about it. On Black Friday happens, if they're only a planner, they're only going to earn 10% commission. Okay. Now, if we can get our planners to managers by Black Friday, they'll literally double the commissions they would have made if they didn't hit manager. Okay. And if we get people to senior manager by Black Friday, we're literally positioning themselves to triple the amount of money they would have made. Does that make sense? Planners 10%, manager base commission is 20, senior managers 30. So literally double and triple. So right now, urgency is at all-time high to get our team promoted to manager and senior manager as fast as possible. So when Black Friday happens and all those sales naturally flow through our organization, people are able to maximize the amount of commissions they're able to make. And let me share with you something. Christmas is also coming up next month, right? I don't know whether you celebrate Christmas or not. I respect everybody's beliefs and what everybody chooses to celebrate, right? As long as they're not hurting anybody. But what I can say is, man, there's no better gift you can give to your team than your people than a big, nice, juicy check on December 15th. Imagine 2 weeks before Christmas when their e-wallet hits and they get a huge commission. They get to go into Christmas knowing that, they have a really good bonus and money there, right? Because going into, a little side topic, right? Christmas is probably one of the most exciting, but also one of the most stressful holidays out there, right? Especially with, today's society in commercialism and marketing, right? I honestly believe there's no reason for anybody to go broke to prove to someone they love them, right? But, Christmas is a very stressful time, especially if they have a big family. And like for us to be able to go out there and support people, getting them to manager, senior manager, getting themselves positioned, right? Sneaking as many people in as possible, that when Black Friday happens, just through that influx of push of sales, They can experience less stress this Christmas, right? They can have more joy this Christmas, more excitement this Christmas. And, that is the things that make this business worthwhile. And, I'm so excited for all these third world countries to open up, like Philippines and Mexico, because one of my favorite experiences, and this is what I hope every single one of you gets to experience. Um, imagine like when I was building in Colombia, the average household in Colombia makes $230 USD a month, right? If you're on the baller side, you're doing a little bit better than everybody else. You're making 1,000 USD. Mexico's roughly the same. Philippines roughly the same. And so imagine when you help somebody in the US or Canada make an extra $500 to $1,000 part-time extra a month, you know, they're excited by it, but it's not as impactful. But imagine in countries where it's like $230 that they're making a month and you help them make an extra 500. You just doubled their household income. Imagine help them make $1,000. That's 4 times their income. And it's just like, I like to share those stories with all of you because I want to invite you to think bigger. This is a lot larger than just your hometown, your city. This is a lot larger than just building your online presence. This is a lot larger than getting more followers, than making that commission. Like we truly have an opportunity that we can truly make an impact on changing people's lives. But it starts with ourselves, starts with our household, our community, in our organization. But let me share with you something. Like there's no better gift because this industry is so unique and it's so special that anybody can learn it. And as long as you have the desire, the work ethic, the coachability, you can go extremely far. And even if you suck like I did, right, in the beginning, you can only be so bad for so long. And let me share with you something. 5 years to make my first $10,000 a month when I was averaging $200 a month and paying 180 to earn commissions. If it took you 5 years to get to a place making multiple six figures, would it be worth it to you? What are the chances you can do it here at Remont? I promise you higher than any other company. That's why we should take this seriously. I just want you to hurry up and get to making that kind of money as fast as possible so you can see that it's not everything. And what really is what makes life worth living is adding significance to the lives of other people. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for joining me this wonderful Sunday evening. I look forward to joining with all of you next Sunday, where we're going to dive into a topic called relationships, the glue to the business, and how to build relationships with our team and how to work with our team. So with that being said, again, get to manager if you're not manager yet. Talk to your upline leadership. Get to senior manager. Right. And let's help as many people change their lives as possible. So that being said, have a great night, everybody. Happy Sunday. Let's get it.